Hello, girlfriends, and welcome to Girlfriend2Girlfriend. I'm Jabbour, the founder and creator of the Girlfriends Club and host of Girlfriend2Girlfriend. I couldn't be more humbled than to welcome this wonderful guest this evening. Um, Dr. Risa Ryger is a psychologist and international speaker. She resides here in the New York area, and a very good friend of mine made the introduction, and she had me at hello. And I think that I wanted, I think that it's just important we get started right away because there's just so much for us to talk about in 30 minutes. So everyone say hello to Risa. You're beautiful and welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Allie, I'm going to do something a little bit different because we just started out together in such tremendous energy and synergy. And usually what happens, I would go and I would say, oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And I do believe all of that. But what I want to say, and just turn this a little bit differently and hop right in together because we're with the girlfriends here.
That's right.
And girlfriends know how to go there. You know how to go on the road, is that it is so important at times, use your judgment, but it's so important to say yes. Because Allie and I were connected by a mutual friend who said, there's someone I want you to meet, to me separately and to Allie separately. And each one of us said yes. And from this yes, and then talking together for a little bit, here we are right now. So don't forget, keep in mind the power of yes.
Oh gosh, that is such great advice, and you're so right. I mean, I think what happened was we were both kind of like, okay, this sounds great, and then we got to talking, and just like girlfriends do, we were all over the map, but we stayed consistent and true to listening to each other and really understanding each other. And I think the respect started at, like I said, you had me at hello, young lady. You had me at hello. And the one thing that you complimented me about, which, I am just always flattered when I hear this, is that my mantra is paying it forward one girlfriend at a time. And I mean that. And I think that that's really important in the construction of my day. When I start my day, and no matter what I'm doing, I am always in the back of my mind remembering to pay it forward. And it doesn't have to be to a girlfriend, it could be to a guy friend too. But I think that it's just a really good mantra to have and to remember, because I wouldn't be here if someone didn't pay it forward to me.
And what you're talking about that's so important is that it's not just an idea that stays in your head, that this is something to live, to embody, and to implement. This is actionable. And that this is something that you need to do and can do. And it doesn't have to be much.
No.
It's micro, because most of our lives, most of our lives are in micro. I mean, we have these incredible moments, right? We have these foundational moments, we have milestones in our lives, but most of our lives are incremental. And every day just has these moments. And we can create our own micro moment. We can create our own micro event when we pay it forward. We can pay it forward with acknowledging someone with a smile or just saying hi. Or actually, no one can see our smiles
I
right now.
know.
But in whatever ways that you can, to have a kind of an acknowledgement, a giving, a doing, a note, whatever that is. It can be the smallest thing, but we had a moment before we got on where we're talking about what it means to hold someone in your mind and to have someone be important to you. And that person can't know that you're thinking about them at that second. But if you have that moment to send them that text message and share something with them, it'll take you this about something that they did or something that they said to you that you remember, that you're holding someone in your mind and in your heart. And that can mean the world to someone else.
100%. And you know what? Our days are so hectic. We sometimes forget that, right? We move right on to the next moment. Every second is jam packed, but I agree with you. I need to take more moments. I need to acknowledge that. And I think that that's great advice. I really do. I mean, I'm just not saying that. Like I will make that a part of my day because I think it's important. One thing that you just said before we came live, so this evening we're going to be talking about what you believe. You believe that positive change can happen at any time in your love life and all relationships. But what we were just connecting about was our very first relationship should be with ourselves. And if that's healthy and you're living your best life, then I guess you can move forward and start to allow others in.
Yes. I mean, it doesn't have to be one then the other. It can be a
Okay.
simultaneous process. But the idea of self-ownership, because, I've been in practice for over 20 years. I've worked with a lot of people, and my commitment is really to help people during times of transition, times of ambiguity, times of change, really be able to navigate, and not just navigate and get through, but navigate and thrive and grow. Because when the ground is shifting, and listen, we all know about shifting ground in the last year that we've been living, that's also opportunity for our growth. And as such, we need to kind of understand ourselves and really be able to look at ourselves. I think that one of the most courageous journeys that anyone can take, and I mean this, is the journey inside yourself to really look at who you are and really take that moment. And people will do everything to avoid that because of all
It's scary.
because it's scary. And what happened was that in through my work, Allie, that I was starting to use a term called self-ownership, and people really responded to that. That it wasn't just about, you know, having some confidence or having some self-esteem, which is all very important, but that when you have self-ownership, it's a different space in yourself of really being able to connect deeply and in a real integrated way, because we were talking about all these different parts of who we are, all
Yes.
these facets. It's like we're these extraordinary jewels, we're these extraordinary diamonds with all these facets, but all these facets make up the diamond. And so when we can look at our facets and put that together and really have ownership of that, which is not an easy thing to do, but it certainly is doable. That it gives us different ground to stand on. We really feel like we're in our own shoes, be they flats, be they, stacked heels, be they kitten heels, or, be they stilettos.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that whatever it is that you're wearing, that you're really in your own shoes, you feeling the ground underneath you, and that no matter what, you still have you.
That's such
And
wise advice. How would someone get started trying to figure that out?
oh gosh, uh, it's really an interesting process, and I call that process. I actually have another name for that. I call that process disruptive self-ownership. And the reason why I call it that is because we need to disrupt and update old beliefs that we have about ourselves. We need to disrupt and update the parts of ourselves that we may have left behind, either consciously or inadvertently out of our awareness. And we need to bring those along. So the first piece of it is really just having this idea and thinking through and embracing that this is something that we can do, that it's possible to do. it's a journey to do it, but it's not an impossible journey. I mean, this isn't climbing Everest, but it's about going in, having that solidified, and having that incredible foundation of yourself that you take with you everywhere you go, no matter what. And from there, you can be in your work, yourself, your love life, and find great love life. And that's, I know, one of the things that we want to talk about today. And we are
Yes.
talking about it already.
Yes. But the what you say, I think, is it takes a lot of courage to own yourself.
Absolutely.
And, to walk in those stilettos or your UGG boots. And it's really important. I mean, I think that's something that I started to work on unconsciously, without it being termed, having a name for it. Way back when, I think when I was a risk taker. So I studied abroad in college, and that was a huge risk. But I was like, I got this. I can go to England. I have this going here. And I loved it so much. I took another risk, and then I worked in Germany for 3.5 years. But the reason why I'm bringing that up is because I feel like my parents helped me form that foundation that gave me the ability to have the courage to do it, because it was more like, why not, instead of why.
Okay.
And I think that was very, helpful to me, as a teen, as a young adult, as a young woman, being able to have the chutzpah to just march.
It's an extraordinary experience that someone holds a vision of you as a can-do person, and they hold it authentically, so that when they're telling you that, you feel it authentically. And, as parents, I'm a parent, I'm a mom, my kids are grown. But when we look at our children and we can see them, I'm not talking about that they need to be who we want them to be, but when we see them as capable, when we see them that way, and when we look at them, they know it, they feel it, even earliest on in our relationships with our tiny little babies. That baby just looks at you and it's like, oh my gosh, every star in the sky, the sun, the planets, this is just wonderful.
So true.
And what happens though is that our babies see us and they watch us. They don't know yet, but they're just taking us in. They're taking us in and they're feeling that because there isn't language yet. So there's so much that happens with us non-verbally, and how we're held, how we're touched. But the communication is very, very powerful. And if you got this from your parents verbally, you also got it from your parents non-verbally.
Of
That
course.
security. And we'll have to get into some of the other aspects of, because what we're talking about now is attachment, and we'll have to get into some of the other aspects of attachment at another time. So we can certainly do that. But,
Yeah.
but these are important steps. And the first step is to bring more awareness and to just start asking yourself those kinds of questions, because we have a certain sayings that are in our usual vernacular, in our vocabulary. They're like throwaway sayings, but people really stick with them. It's like, oh, well, I've just left that part of myself behind. Or, well, I've turned the page. There's still a book.
So true. There's still that book. That's right.
You may have turned the page, but the book is still there. And then the question is, because oftentimes we put more value, and we overvalue the things that we do negatively, perhaps. I'm going to use negative and positive, although there's much better vocabulary, but for simplicity. And so we overvalue the mistakes that we've made, the things that we think we've done wrong. And it's so easy for us to undervalue what we've done well, what's turned out right, where we've put effort in. It's like, oh, yeah, it's not, oh, that wasn't such a big deal. We tend to minimize that, and we maximize maybe some of what didn't go so well.
I think that's very common.
You think so?
I think that, I know when I chat with my girlfriends, that's always it. I'm like, why are you so hard on yourself?
Yeah.
We don't need to talk, you have to see all your fine attributes, all
Mhm.
your gifts, but put a sparkler all over that, because that's the good part, right? I mean, we're so quick to, spank ourselves and live in that torture. It's
Mhm.
like, and there's that whole, thought about forgiving yourself, right? So when you forgive someone, you're forgiving them and letting yourself free, because you're being held hostage, right, to that moment. So why not let it go? It's very mature.
It's
It
very,
sounds really good, but it's really hard. But
it's
I've
very,
been there. I mean, like, as you know, like, I've been divorced twice, Risa, and those were hard. When I read your line, I believe positive change can happen at any time in your love life and all relationships. I believe that even though those were very difficult times, and trust me, nobody gets married to get divorced, right?
for sure.
We peel back the onion on our relationships, and I'm always like, but you know what? Like, I'll say to my kids, when your dad and I were thriving, it was a really wonderful place. When it broke down, it was hard, but I would try to bring myself back to the good place. And
Mhm.
it didn't work out. 17 years, great. We lived together. We had a beautiful family, and now we're friends. We're friendly, and that's fine. But that's the place, and that to me gave me freedom.
Yeah.
I wasn't tied to that, which I was tying myself to,
Yeah.
the negative.
It's so important. And I just want to make sure to say to this incredible land of girlfriends and this extraordinary sisterhood, and I have pom-poms every day. I've got pom-poms out for the sisterhood, because if we don't shine each other's lights, if we don't shine light on one another, we really need to do that. So as we're moving, I want to make sure that I say, as we're moving into more openness from COVID, hopefully, as we're starting in this journey, there's a lot that we've learned during this time, and hopefully a lot that we've learned about ourselves. And so you don't have to, just out of reflex, say, well, I'm just going to go back to how things were. That there are things that you may have learned about yourself, experiences that you've had, living life with a quieter backdrop, dating where it hasn't been to like the fanciest new place where the cocktails have smoke coming out of them,
Ooh.
and and we'll go when things open up even more. But that you can make decisions about what you have learned about yourself going forward. And that relationships, the pace of relationships really needed to slow down. And people weren't, you know, um, just going into just usual sorts of, I'll meet you for dinner, I'll meet you for a drink. But people really needed to get to know one another a little bit more, especially as connection was happening on Zoom meetings or in texting or Bumble or swiping and all of that. But that those important pieces of relationships, things that are important to you and what you've learned from about yourself, for yourself and from yourself, don't leave that behind.
Sage advice.
You don't have to just pick up where you left off because you may be in a different place in yourself. Your needs may have changed. There may have been some sort of development and understanding that you don't want to leave inside your house as you walk out the door into some sort of activity. You have choices to make. This is another opportunity for that kind of self-ownership.
It's amazing. You're so right. You think about the past year, the shifts, just being home, the families. I was saying how either your relationships made it or boy did they not make it. They made it or broke and shattered. It was a very difficult time and it was a very happy time. Relationships were forged and things, beautiful things happened. Weddings, babies, it still occurred. But at the end of the day, we had to live in a very different world, very different. And running out for that drink or going to that event just wasn't a thing anymore.
But what people were doing when they were meeting up on apps, and that
Yes.
was what was happening, right? Is that you had a chance to really get to know one another because there wasn't all of the noise around. So you could be with someone and you could be with someone for 10 minutes or 15 minutes on some sort of, Zoom if you got to that part, or had a virtual cocktail, or somebody needed to create a date that was happening virtually. And after you got off of that, you could say to yourself, we were together for 10 minutes or 15 minutes and he never asked me about myself because the noise isn't there. That it gave you an opportunity to really assess differently in the quiet of just what's happening right then and there. And so it brought back, at least for that moment, for that time, and I want you to kind of tell me what you've heard also, a different level of courtship and people getting to know each other that was slowed down and not like that, what I call like that third date. Are we hooking up or are we done?
Right. I think it was a much more intimate, believe it or not, connection. And I find that in business as well, because you can't start multitasking when you're on a Zoom. You just can't. You just can't, start walking around, or if you're at a bar, you're looking around, you're checking your phone. If we're on a Zoom right now, I can't start doing this. That's not appropriate. So I think that a lot of the connections, I think you probably sooner than not if it was somebody that you wanted to spend time with.
Yeah, and you could get out of it. You could get out of it so easily.
Leave, click.
It didn't even have to be coffee. I mean,
So
you could just, you could just be gone. But the other thing is that it gave us also an opportunity to also maybe get to know people better who we might have overlooked.
I agree. I think that happened more often than not. Spending time, quality time with people that you never thought that you would, because they were open to having like a house party visit or a Zoom visit or whatever it was. I agree with you. Even so, my neighbors, even across the street, who, were always like ships crossing in the night. One evening, she's like, "Do you want to hop on house party and have Cosmos?" And I'm like, "Yeah." But that wouldn't have happened because we would have been two ships in the night. So there's one example, right there. And also the fact people didn't have to travel. Travel takes a lot of time. All you have to do is text and say, "Do you want to visit for a few minutes? Jump on. Let's do a FaceTime." I know I'm doing that with my sisters. We'll jump on a Zoom or a FaceTime and just visit. But we wouldn't be able to do that. This one's in Port Washington, this one's over here, that, I'm out here. It's, what I'm saying. So for any type of relationship, I think it's alleviated a lot of stress. having this opportunity. I'm not saying we should continue like this, but I think it's helped a little bit. It's opened up another form of communication.
Yes. And in that, you know, sometimes when relationships end or relationships are going through a rocky time, you know, sometimes you hear people say, or you know, I can remember myself saying, uh, you know, a while back, like, who do you think you are? Right? Who do you think you are? But I think we need to really consciously flip this. And ladies, get ready for this because I want you to remember this. It isn't who do you think you are? It's who do you think I am that you would imagine this would be okay with me?
Wow, that is so hello. I gotta write that down. I'm so glad that you're coming back soon because like who do you think who what?
Who do
And
you think I am? Who do you think I am that this behavior, not listening, whatever it may be, not paying attention, forgetting, not making this
not being present.
not being present, not making this a priority.
Exactly.
Who do you think I am that that would be okay with me? It's a flip.
It
It's a
is a
flip.
flip. I often, when girlfriends ask me my advice, if they're going through a situation, I'm like, it's not necessarily the other person. It's
Mhm.
you. Your needs aren't being met. You're not, you're not being taken care of the way you want to be taken care of or being spoken to that way. So remember, it's not always you need to do this, but it's more like this is what I need
Mhm.
going forward.
And I want you to know that. You know, when
Right.
you did that, that was great. I'd love some more of that. That other thing, not so much. You know, that other thing, let's like leave that.
Back up,
Let
buddy.
I know,
Back
let's leave
up.
that one at the curb. But park that one and you can leave it
Yeah.
forever.
But you're right. I mean, I think that there's, we all have different needs. We also have to remember that the most important pillar of any relationship is communication. When the communication breaks down, everything gets stalled because you
Mhm.
can't get out of your own way. If you can't communicate, where are you going to go?
And those are the hard times. But it doesn't
Big
have to be,
lessons, really
yeah.
big lessons, tough ones.
But that's where if you want this relationship to happen and the other person has to want it
Mhm.
too, right? That's where you dig down and you have the conversation. And the conversations are not easy. We're not taught really how to have these
No,
conversations.
there's no manual.
There isn't a
But I'm
manual.
thinking you could write one.
I'm
I'm
gonna
pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that there's like a thing here that could be happening.
do a little something, something
Little
for
something,
sure.
something, little
We can do a
handbook.
little something, something, you know, and 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 no matter what happens, you know, if you need to stay connected with your own joyfulness, you need to stay connected with your own sparkle. And so if you're in a relationship that is snuffing that out, if you're in a relationship that you just are feeling downtrodden, it's time to really think about it. And the other side of that is that if you're in a relationship where there's liveliness and you light up, not every minute, not every minute. That is not what a relationship looks like. It is messy. Relationships are messy. They're messy. They're juicy. There's that whole mix in there. But also, if you're in a relationship that gives you light, make sure that you bring light for your partner as well.
I love that. And I think those are the best parting words. Bring light for yourself and light for your partner. What more? I mean, that's a beautiful gift.
We all
It's a
need
beautiful
love.
gift.
We all
We
need,
all
there's
need love.
nothing, there
Mhm.
is nothing like love.
Nothing
So,
like love.
take your hands if you want to and bring the love into you,
Amen.
and then take those hands and bring that love out.
Thank
because we
you.
need to give it and we need to be able to receive.
And was I right, everyone? Was this not the most lovely episode? Risa, thank you so much. And I know you're coming back because we already have a date on the calendar. And I am just so grateful that you could spare some time, your busy schedule, to be here tonight. So thank you. Thank you, girlfriends, for tuning in. And you can find Dr. Ryger. What is your handle on Instagram?
Dr. Risa Ryger, or
Uh-huh.
you can, maybe you guys can drop it in the chat
I
because I'll
will.
give you links of how to
Mhm.
connect with me. My website is drrisaryger.com, DrRisaRyger.com. I would love to hear from you. I have been thrilled to be here today.
Thank you.
I
Thank
wouldn't
you.
have missed being with the girlfriends.
I am so grateful to you. And I think everyone is. And thank you for girlfriending with me. And I will see you in a few weeks. Until then, be well.